You know what it is? Your boy all day, D47, revisiting as much rugby league information as possible. Right now, the 1957 wooden spoon in Australian Rugby League, the second of 6 consecutive wooden spoons picked up by Parramatta Eels between 1956 to 1961. 6 straight wooden spoons, the worst spoon streak by any team ever. And as per always, watching this video all the way through to the end in its entirety, so you're not missing any essential rugby league information. So, in the previous video, the 1956 wooden spoon, which Parramatta also got, I mentioned in that one how in 1956 they played well at times in the season, and they at least had 4 wins and 1 draw from their 18 games in 1956, and they were extremely unlucky to only just get the wooden spoon by a fingernail or by a pinky. They only just got the wooden spoon because in 1956 they'd lost their last 2 games by 1 point each, and all the other results went against them at the same time. But however though, that was absolutely not the case in 1957 or the next 4 wooden spoons too. Up to 1961, those 5 years, 1957 to 1961, they were always getting the wooden spoon, absolutely no doubt about it, with how horrendously they were performing. Now, if you've been watching these wooden spoon videos, you can scroll through this playlist if you haven't, so you can find all the wooden spoons from when Australian Rugby League started in the year 1908 all the way up to the present day. If you've watched any of those, you'll have seen me say how poorly Annandale performed when they got the wooden spoon in 1914, 1918 and 1920, and also how horrendously University performed when they picked up 10 wooden spoons between the years 1920 to 1937. But remembering, with Annandale and with University in the early days of Australian Rugby League, those 2 teams were not professional. Those 2 teams were amateurs. The comp itself wasn't fully professional yet back then in the very infancy of the game. But a few decades later, 1950s and 1960s, it definitely was a professional sport. So my personal opinion is that Parramatta's 6 straight wooden spoons is actually the worst team ever. The fact that they were supposed to be a professional team, and the fact that the rot continued for 6 straight years and they got 6 straight wooden spoons, my opinion is that that's in fact the very worst team ever. Not in 1956 when they only just got the spoon, most definitely in this year, 1957, and also 58, 59, 60 and 61, so you need to keep watching to learn about those. And as per always, we go for all the wooden spoon teams' stats for the season, and these are absolutely horrendous. Parramatta in 1957 winning a meagre 2 games out of 18, winning 2 and losing 16 out of 18, and 6 of their 16 losses were by horrific scorelines, which we'll get to in a few minutes. And even the top try and point score is very, very meagre. There was a player called Bill Rayner who managed just 5 tries for Parramatta in 1957, and he was the top try scorer, could only manage 5 tries for them. And the top point scorer, his name was Ted Brennan, and he only got 22 goals, no tries, 22 goals, 44 points only for them in 1957, and that was the most any of their players could produce. But what was even more horrendous was the defence. They scored 189 points in attack from the 18 games in 1957, but they conceded a gigantic 491 points from 18 games, for and against minus 302 points, which is absolutely diabolical. That's how bad they were going. And then we always do every wooden spoon team's moment in the sun and most embarrassing moment. So obviously the moment in the sun is going to be the 2 games that they did win. Well, only one of them is actually a moment in the sun. The only 2 games that Parramatta did win in 1957, in round 6 they'd beaten Canterbury 16 points to 12, and in round 11 they'd beaten Newtown in a king-size upset 16 points to 2. With the win over Canterbury in round 6, that actually ended up not even mattering, because Parramatta played Canterbury again in round 15, and then they lost that one to Canterbury 18 points to 11, and that there was what enabled Canterbury to avoid the wooden spoon. Canterbury were horrible too in 1957, but with that win over Parramatta 18-11, that enabled Canterbury to finish second last in 1957, and it guaranteed Parramatta would be getting the wooden spoon in 1957. So even though they'd beaten Canterbury in round 6, it didn't even matter because they lost to Canterbury in round 15, and that's how they were ensured the spoon. So the moment in the sun is that king-size upset over one of the better teams, Newtown, 16 points to 2. So they have to win one sometimes. Now, most embarrassing moment, I usually pinpoint the most embarrassing moment in the season, or I say, okay, there's 2 or 3 games that you can pick from. This time, there's 6. There's no less than 6 contenders for Parramatta's most embarrassing moment in 1957. So I want you to tell me in the comments what you think it is. It could be any of the 6, like each and every one of these 6 losses I'm about to mention are worthy contenders to be the most embarrassing game. My personal opinion is that it's the round 2 loss to Newtown, 42 points to 7. And like I always need to say, at the time tries used to be 3 points. So that's obviously why we get odd number scorelines, but also remembering 42 points to 7, that's the equivalent of losing probably 50 points to 8. Because tries were 3 points at the time. My opinion is that it's the 42 points to 7 loss in round 2, just because that's what started the nightmare, so to speak, and that obviously after that wretched display, Parramatta's rot set in for 1957, and they never recovered and got out of it for the rest of the year. But it could be any of the 6 I'm about to mention. At least in round 1, though, before I forget, 1957 round 1, Parramatta had only lost to Eastern Suburbs 10 points to 5, so that wasn't too bad. A narrow loss there, 1 converted try. But then in round 2, the 42 7 points lost to Newtown, the rot set in. But other monster scorelines they conceded. In round 3, 1957, a 33 points to 9 thumping from Balmain. Could be the most embarrassing moment. In round 5, an absolutely ridiculous scoreline, 53-14 annihilation from St George, in which St George piled on 11 tries. Twice against South, believe it or not, in round 7, 50 points to 10, pulverisation from South, in which South piled on 12 tries. And then when they played South again in round 16, this time South put 48 on, beating them 48-12. So pulverised by Saints and pulverised by South twice. And then in the very final round, 1957 round 18, at the final insult, they were thumped by North Sydney, 37 points to 9. So of those 6 monster scorelines I just conceded, each and every one of them have their own merits to be the most embarrassing moment. My personal opinion is that it's the round 2 loss to Newtown, 42 points to 7. But let me know your opinion in the comments below as to which one of those is, in fact, the most embarrassing moment. And obviously in 1958 coming up next, okay, they at least won 3 games in 1958, but they still got the spoon. It was slightly better, but not much. So I was still getting the spoon in the middle of Parramatta's 6-year nightmare right now. If you're still watching all the way through to the end, as requested, thank you so much for not missing any crucial on-point rugby league information, and thank you so much for continued brilliant support. Your boy all day, handling my business, popping off AM PM, up in this building for all know what it is. Your boy D47, Toodaloo.